Hi, I'm Shawna.
And I'm Liz.
Welcome to Getting Bookish, a weekly podcast where we will talk about different book-related topics, let you know what we're reading, and even answer Q&As from you.
Be sure to visit our website, gettingbookish.com, and check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Getting Bookish. If you enjoy our podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe and leave us a rating and review, which helps us to be seen by other book lovers.
With all that said, we hope you'll enjoy Getting Bookish with us.
Enjoy the podcast.
Hello, friends. Liz and I are back with a new topic for you this week, and this one is kind of another little hot topic, I think. This one is DNF, and we'll explain that in a minute, or skipping and skimming. So DNF is did not finish, and that means you got to whatever point you are in the book and you decided it's not for me and you didn't finish it. And then skipping and skimming is again where you're not invested 100% in the book, but you still kind of want to know what happens at the end. So you either skip all the way to the end and finish that last couple chapters or whatever, or you kind of power read through it, so you're skimming to get to the end because you just really want to know what happens at the end, but it's not keeping your attention, something that you're going to invest another couple hours in. So we're going to talk about, do we do that? How do we feel about that? Kind of thing. So not finishing a book. I don't know how you are. I think I do. It's hard for me. It is so hard for me. I feel like I need to know what's going to happen. Maybe it'll get better. And I think that's probably what a lot of people feel is like, well, what if it gets better? And what if I miss something? And how do I give a review? Or how do I talk about it if I didn't finish it? I feel like I'm being lazy. I feel like I'm, it's a cop-out or something like that. And those are all, I feel like such feelings of guilt and shame when I do not finish a book. But with that being said, I just recently, as in today, did not finish a book. And it is only the second book probably in my life that I did not finish. But it was just one where, I got into page like 60. I think it was a pretty short book, maybe 250 pages or something. But I was like, this is just not for me. Everything about it was just not going any way that was even interesting or that I even cared about. So I thought, you know what? I just need to put it down. There are so many books. This is not the one. So I didn't finish it.
Yay!
And I don't know how I feel about it yet. I feel like it was not a book that I needed to read, but there's a voice in the back of my head thinking, well, maybe you should have just finished it in case. So how do you feel?
I'm the total opposite. I do not finish is actually a shelf that I keep on Goodreads for books that I do not finish. I have no guilt over this. And I know that I used to. I know that I used to feel like, no, you start a book, you finish a book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just got to the point where I was like, there's 400 books on my to-be-read list. There's no reason why I should be trying to power through a book I'm not enjoying when there might be 100 books that I would give 5 stars to right now if I just took the time to read one of those ones instead.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, not finishing a book, I would say every 5th or 6th book I start, I don't finish.
Wow.
Because
so
it's
how do
just,
you know? At what point do you get when you're like, I can't?
I usually give a book to page 50. That's kind of my...
That's pretty quick.
Right? Well, that's kind of my... Like, if you haven't... Now, I read a lot of fantasy. I read a lot of genre
long books.
Fiction. They're long books. And typically, a fantasy book, something pretty exciting is going to happen in the first or second chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if the exciting thing has already happened in the first or second chapter and I still don't care by page 50... we have a problem.
Yeah.
And also, for me, a lot of what I enjoy in a book, plot is not something I'm particularly, like, enamored by necessarily. I'm very much, like, characters are where it's at for me. Yes. And so, if by page 50, I don't care about the characters, I don't need to keep reading this book because it's not going to improve.
Yeah.
Those first 50 pages are when they're giving you all that character development.
Right.
And so if I feel like the main character is a spoiled brat or they're just boring, like, I'm very willing to just be like, meh, I'm done.
Yeah. There is something that I do before I consider, because there's been a lot of books that I've considered.
Right.
And like for this last one and the one previous to that, I do go on to Goodreads and then I'll look at the rating and that kind of helps me. Like if I look at it and it's got, a 3-star rating, I'm like, well, that means like probably half the people kind of think it's not a great book. And I'll read some of the bad reviews, and if I can see myself in those reviews, it helps. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I need a therapist when it comes to not finishing. And I don't know what that is, but I want to get better at that because I have noticed in the past that has stopped me from reading, because if you're reading a book you don't enjoy, it will take you forever.
Oh, yeah.
And forever. And so one book, I went through probably months because I'm like, I got to get through it. I got to finish it, But I could have put that aside and read 30 other books in its place, but I didn't. So then once you stop reading, you get out of that habit, then you're just out of the habit, regardless if you finish that book or find a new one. You're just kind of...
Right. And I think that that's why I have started to be so willing to
let it go.
Let books go, because I want to avoid that reading rut.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be reading a book for 3 weeks because then it feels like homework. I'm like, this is terrible. It's like reading Moby Dick or something else that I really don't like. But I think that, and sometimes it isn't the book for right now. And I think that's different than DNF, because I recently stopped reading American Gods by Neil Gaiman because it's kind of an intense book. It's pretty graphic. And I was like, this is not something I'm enjoying right now, but I love Neil Gaiman. And so that's separate from me. That's I know I'm going to finish this book. I'm not going to finish it right now.
Okay.
And so I don't consider that a DNF because I didn't stop it because I'm like, well, this is so boring. I just don't care. I stopped it because I was like, this is a little bit intense for me right now. In 6 months, it probably won't be, and I'll be able to read the rest of it and I'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and I think that those are maybe a little bit different. I create lots of gray areas for myself.
I love it.
Because that's the great thing about reading is there aren't really any rules, so you get to make them up as you go.
Yeah, and you know what I think probably gives me a little bit of the guilt is that I've bought the book. If I've bought it, I feel like I've invested, I've purchased, I've spent money. Did I waste money? But that if I bought it, that doesn't automatically make it a good book. And I have to remember that even if I finish it, that doesn't make it any better. I've already spent the money. So maybe try to sell it or give it away to somebody else. I don't know. But that is just one of the things of, man, but I bought it. I spent money. I should at least read it.
Yeah. And I think that's recently made me, like, if I'm just out and about and I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy this because it has a beautiful cover, which I'm so guilty of all the time.
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
And, but, like, I have the Goodreads app on my phone. I can pull it up real quick and be like, oh, no, look, my first 5 friends who have also read this book, they
hated it.
Didn't like it. They gave it 2 or 3 stars. Well, guess what? I don't need to buy this book. So, being a little bit more careful, but that doesn't mean I don't buy lots of books that I'm like, this is terrible. I'm just very willing to let it go. And that's something that I think you have to slowly convince yourself of.
Yeah.
Is being like, I don't have to finish reading this book. And it's okay. Like, no one's going to come over and be like, oh,
yeah,
you didn't finish this book? No one will even know, except for people know for me, because I actually have a shelf in Goodreads where I shelve my DNFs.
You know what? Do you put why you didn't finish them in your review? So I wonder if you had multiple people message under that and say, I felt the same way as you, but on page 75, it was the most incredible book I've ever read in my entire book. If you had like multiple people that said that, would you consider reading it again once it's been? Really? You're done. Oh,
no.
Oh, cold.
Well,
get out of my life.
The thing is that I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, I just think about all the people who love to read mystery novels.
Mm-hmm.
I don't enjoy mystery novels.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I started one, it's very possible I would just DNF it. And I'm sure tons of people would be like, but it's such a good book.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it's a good book. You like mystery novels. I don't. And so I think it's like the same thing. So maybe for people who love like a plot-based book, they're like, this is such a good book, you have to go back and read it. Well, I don't really care about the plot. The characters were so one-dimensional that I just couldn't get into the story.
Yeah.
And so it would be different if someone, like if you came to me and were like, no, on this page, this incredible thing happens. Like,
it's
or someone that or someone that we read like all the same books and they were like, no, like you have to give it to this point. The person you think is the main character isn't the main character. Yeah. I don't know, but
yeah,
then that would be different. But just people, like if 10 people commented on Goodreads, I'd be like, nah.
I was thinking back now that I'm talking, I said that there's 2 that I didn't finish, but I'm just kind of going back. There's books that, I mean, maybe this would count. Sometimes when I'm trying to find the next book to read, I'll read like the first chapter of a bunch of different books and kind of figure out which one keeps my attention. And so I mean, the other ones, it's not that I'm not going to read them. I'm just not going to read them right now. I've chosen my book. But there is a book, like you were saying, if it doesn't capture your attention, a bunch of my friends were telling me, you have to read this book. It is fantastic. It is amazing. And so now that I'm thinking about it, I did start reading it. And I got to page 20. I was bored out of my mind. And so they're like, you got to keep reading. Page 40, 50, 60, 100. I'm like, this is a nightmare. And they're like, I know, but it'll pick up around page 150. Just trust me. It will be the best book you ever read. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't put myself through this anymore. And I don't know if you read it. It was The Host by Stephanie Meyer. It was like right after the whole Twilight thing. Have you read it?
It's on my DNF list.
Is it? Stop it.
I'm not even kidding. It's an interesting idea, but I'm like, I just don't care.
How far did you get into it?
Okay, so it's been a minute, obviously.
Yeah.
But I maybe got halfway.
Yeah. And people have told me
like,
you have to
like this.
Yeah, but they're like, you have to get to the halfway point. I know the beginning. And I'm like, come on, if you can't get my attention, I know you said 50 pages, but like if I've given you 150 or 200 pages,
that's a lot.
Good
I mean,
grief.
For a lot of books, that's the entire book.
Right? So now my mind is like thinking of maybe some other instances, but I do remember that because I felt like I was missing out with my friends because they're like, no, just keep reading. And I'm like, I just can't do it.
So it's so funny. I can't remember what the book was, and I wish I could right now, but I was reading the review of it. I'm like, this sounds so amazing. And then someone, like a newspaper review, said, if you love, perfect for people who love Stephanie Meyer's The Host.
Oh,
and
goodness.
I was like, I don't want to read this now.
That's so specific.
I know, and I was like, that's such an old book to reference.
Yeah.
Like, if you loved this, like, it's not even like it's different if it was Twilight. Like, if you love Twilight, you'll love this.
But The Host, it's such a secondary...
That book was a phenomenon. Yeah. I'm like, what? But it's so funny that you even brought that one up right now, because I was just thinking of it a couple days ago while I was reading some
reviews. Hilarious.
Yeah. So So yeah, no, I'm very comfortable not finishing.
I need to be more comfortable.
Yeah.
I need to be more comfortable with that. And I definitely see the benefit. I think it just comes from that, like, you need to finish what you start. But you don't always need to finish what you start. If passion has died with your hobby or whatever craft you're working on, I mean, you shouldn't just set out to never finish anything. But something as non-intrusive as a book, it's okay.
Yeah. I also threw away a scarf today that I started like 15 years ago.
Oh, I have like finished a million of those types of projects. Oh.
So that one was really hard for me.
Good
I stared at it because I'm packing to move. And I stared at it for a really long time. And I was like, no, this is in a bag for a clothing store that I shopped at when I was in high school. It has to go. Like, it has to go.
Yeah, I feel like we're the same person. I had a whole box of squares that I cut for a quilt that I was going to make. I cut those squares 15 years ago. I'm not going to finish the quilt, especially now with 4 kids. So I threw it away.
I just packed all my quilt squares in a box. So I was like, maybe I can use this for something else.
All right, back on the books.
Okay, so let's talk about skipping and skimming.
Yes.
Do you do this?
So this is kind of a relatively new concept for me, as well as not finishing a book. You know, I never knew it had a name, DNF. So that whole experience with the host, I just felt like a quitter. So I like that it actually, in the book world, it actually has a name and it's okay.
Yeah. It's very accepted here.
Skipping and skimming, I haven't. I have never been one to, because like I said, I've always finished the book. So I've never been to the point where I could skip or skim. But recently, a book, if you guys remember me talking about, that I couldn't stand was At the Wolf's Table. And it made me so angry because I was very excited to read a book about what that was about, being a food taster at Hitler's table. I mean, that's a fantastic, story to listen to. And I hated it. And so I got to probably 3/4 of the way through, and there's no way I could have finished it. You couldn't pay me enough to finish it. But I wanted to know what happened at the end. So I power read. I put my eyes on ×3, and I was just like, blah, blah, blah. I just skimmed through it. I caught some keywords, and I got to the end, and I was like, wow, I just proved to myself that literally nothing happened of importance, and I don't care. I mean, it should have been a book I didn't finish. It should have been a book I didn't. Same with Blake Crouch. And that book, Dark Matter.
Life?
I shouldn't have finished that one either. So I can go back and I can see the books that I shouldn't have finished. And I can see at the point where I'm thinking, I don't want to read this anymore. And then I finish it and I'm like, I shouldn't have read this. So I feel like these are baby steps for me. Like, I don't know if I'm ready to jump all in board of not finishing. But I think I'm okay with if I can't stand it, maybe I'll skim and skip.
Yes.
To at least see if it's something I would have wanted to hear.
Right. So for you, it's a good step to figure out, I shouldn't finish this book. And for me, it's been a good step to step back and be like, oh no, I can kind of finish this book. Yeah. So when I get to the point where I'm like, I don't care about this story. Like, if I'm choosing to do other things rather than read, I know that the book I'm reading isn't very compelling for me. When I'm like, oh no, I could read right now, or I could watch something silly on YouTube, and I choose YouTube, I know my book isn't very good.
Yeah.
And so I think that starting to tell myself, oh no, you could just skim, or you could skip the whole middle section. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're so sometimes I'll get to page 70 or 80 and I'll be like, why am I still reading this? This isn't that good. I'm not enjoying this at all. And so then I'll be like, I'm going to skip, 50 pages, jump into a chapter somewhere, which, let me tell you, 5 years ago, that would have been so against the reading rules to me that I would have never considered it. But, I'll do that. And then, if it's, crazy good where I jump in, I'll go back.
Okay.
Like if I'm like, whoa, like what is happening? This is so exciting.
Yeah.
Who is this character that I now don't even know because they came out of nowhere? I'll
So it's
go
kind
back.
of your way of giving the book a second chance.
Right. And not just giving up on it, which
Okay.
would be my normal go-to.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I skim very much, but I will skip whole sections.
Wow.
And yeah, and oftentimes now, like if I'm like, okay, I'm not going to finish this book, I'm not enjoying it, even if I'm going to shelve it as a DNF, I'll go and I'll read the last 2 chapters. Because, you know, I kind of want to know how it ends.
Yeah.
Even if I don't want to get there in the story.
Well, especially because the books that you read, the fantasy books that you're reading, the YA, those are such big books. So if you're going to invest your time, it's got to be a good book because
right.
That's huge.
I know oftentimes that, yeah, they are. They're 600 pages, 900 pages.
Yeah.
I just recommended a book yesterday to someone and they were like, this book is huge. And I was like, oh, like I don't even think about it anymore because that's what I read all the time. And they're like, this is really long. I was like, oh, let's look at something different. Let me recommend this one over here. Because like if someone isn't a reader and you hand them a 700-page book, it's like, yeah. But no, I'm always excited. Like, okay, I am going to skip this whole section. And I'm usually pretty honest about the fact that I did that when I write a review. Because I don't think you can go in and be like, I'm going to review this whole book when you didn't read the entire middle section. Like, so usually I'll still classify that as a did not finish. I'll put it on the DNF shelf and say I didn't finish this book because, and it's always a personal reason. I mean, it's usually not, I didn't finish this because the writer is a terrible person. That's not what happened.
I know, and that could be somebody else's favorite book.
Right. I know. And it's always, we've talked about this before. It's always so heartbreaking when someone's like, I hated that book. And you're like, what? What? No! You're not allowed to say that. I love that book. Yeah.
I think one of the things that might help me, what I've noticed is that I read roughly 100 pages a day. And so I can kind of gauge how I'm feeling about the story because between the 4 kids and, you know, homeschooling and all these other things, I'm good with 100 pages. And sometimes it's more because I can finish a book in like 2 days or something or 3 days. But then I'm like, no, those are the good books. When you're like, I don't care. I'm reading until 4 a.m. if my eyes are bleeding. I don't care. I have to finish what happened in this book. But I know that when I go below, so I guess maybe it's not the average is 100. I know if I go below 100, that something's missing because I don't think that it's very hard for me to do 100 pages in a day. And when I don't hit that, especially when I'm at like 40 pages, I'm like, did I have a really busy day? Or did I have just no motivation to read this?
Right. Which is probably a great indicator for you on maybe I should DNF this. Or maybe I should skip ahead 50 pages and see, oh, like I wouldn't skip to the end. Or I wouldn't be one of those monsters that reads the last chapter first.
I know people that do that.
I know people who do that. And I'm like,
what's the point of reading a story? I have friends that read all the spoilers for all the movies before they go see the movie. And I'm like, who are you?
That sounds terrible.
This is not a human quality. The suspense, the build, you know?
And so, like, if I'm already thinking about not finishing a book, I'm willing to skip ahead 50 pages and be like, oh, no, this does get better, or no, I'm right. This is not going to get better story. This is not the story for me. I don't want to say it's a terrible story, but it's not the book for me. Because I think that genre and subject matter mean a lot, but also where the author's focus was. Like if it was character-driven or plot-driven or focused more on world building. Like all of those things mean the book is going to turn out very, very differently. And so just because the description sounded amazing doesn't mean you're going to actually feel it's amazing.
Right. Yeah. So those are some definite kind of literary things to think about. And I would love to hear from our listeners whether you care about not finishing a book. Do you do that? Do you not? Or do you skim? Do you skip? And I think you hit on a good point is you have to also be honest with that, because you can't say, oh, I read a book a day. Do you really read a book a day, or are you skimming through it and halfway through jumping around?
Right.
Just to sound like a reading genius.
Right. Well, because like the average audiobook is 15 hours?
Yeah.
And so, even if you're reading faster than an audiobook, which you probably are, that's still 10 hours. Mm-hmm. You're reading for 10 hours a day? No, you're not. You have to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would like to know other people's opinions on this, what they think about this, because I feel like this could be maybe not a hot topic, but a touchy subject. Like, people feel guilt, like I do, with not finishing.
Right. Right.
And there's nothing to feel guilty about it.
No, and I'm really interested too. Like, are there people who are as comfortable as I am that are like, man, this is boring, I'm giving it up? Or
# don't finish it.
Yeah. I love it. Or are there people who are like, no, I always want to read. I always want to finish. Or maybe there are people who don't ever regret finishing a book.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm excited to see everyone's opinions, and that will be posted on our Facebook page. You guys can head over there to Getting Bookish, and we're excited to hear what you guys think about finishing books that you don't enjoy or not finishing books. So,
all right, that's it for us, and we will be back next week with another topic.
Bye. Yep, thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed hanging out with us.
Don't forget to check us out on social media and subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any of the fun.
See you next week.